Picture this. A man stands at the precipice of ruin, his life's work crumbling around him. The conventional wisdom, the platitudes whispered in every motivational seminar, scream that he failed because he didn't fight hard enough, that he didn't believe deeply enough, that his passion simply wasn't strong enough. But if you were to ask Niccolò Machiavelli, the cold surgeon of human behavior, he would lean in and tell you the truth. This man failed precisely because his passion was too strong. His fiery devotion was not his greatest virtue. It was the fatal flaw that made him predictable, brittle, and ultimately, controllable. We live in a world that fetishizes intensity. We are told to find our burning purpose, to be consumed by our craft, to sacrifice everything on the altar of a singular obsession. The celebrated heroes are always the fanatics, the ones whose vision is so focused they block out the sun. We are taught that passion equals drive, and drive equals success. But Machiavelli offers a profoundly chilling counter-perspective. He recognized that the deepest, most consuming passion does not liberate, it enslaves. It is not a compass guiding you to victory, but an anchor chaining you to a single, easily targeted vulnerability. The moment you allow a singular objective, a powerful emotion, or a deeply held desire to dictate your entire strategic landscape, you have ceased to be a free agent. You are now a prisoner of your own burning heart. Machiavelli understood that power is the art of maximizing options and minimizing dependency. Passion, by its very nature, violates both principles. It narrows your options by making only one path acceptable, and it maximizes your dependency on achieving that specific, narrow goal. A general obsessed with capturing one particular city, no matter the cost, loses the ability to pivot when the enemy cuts off his supply lines. A ruler whose only passion is accumulating gold loses the ability to spend wisely when a crisis demands immediate expenditure. A leader fixated on an ideology loses the capacity to compromise when diplomacy is the only viable path to survival. The passionate man, according to the Machiavellian analysis, is easy to defeat because he broadcasts his intentions through his desperation. He lacks the essential quality Machiavelli demanded of any effective leader: strategic flexibility. When the objective becomes an overriding need, the individual stops responding to reality and starts responding only to the dictates of the need itself. He is no longer guided by the cold, hard facts, what Machiavelli called the effectual truth of things, but by the intoxicating, dangerous promise of his own fulfillment. This distortion of reality is the first brick in the wall of his eventual prison. Before we delve deeper into how this intoxicating obsession restricts your freedom and compromises your strategic authority, take a moment to consider how widely this trap is set. Look around your own environment. What is the burning passion that dictates your daily movements? We are discussing deep, universal strategic truths that apply everywhere, from the greatest corporate boardrooms to the quietest, most intense personal ambition. Tell us, where are you tuning in from? Which city are you observing the world from as we dissect this foundational strategic error? Now let us analyze the architecture of this prison built by zeal. The passionate person is a victim of visibility and predictability. For Machiavelli, the greatest strength is often the ability to conceal one's true intentions and maintain an unpredictable posture. The passionate individual cannot do this. His fervor is his advertisement. His dedication is his map. The depth of his emotional investment reveals the exact location of his strategic pressure points. If you know that a rival is passionately dedicated to acquiring a certain piece of land, you do not attack him directly. You do not challenge him in public. Instead, you attack the land's price. You delay the necessary permits, or you buy up the adjacent properties, making his core passion a logistical nightmare. Because his emotional investment is so high, he will overpay, overexert, and make disproportionate sacrifices just to satisfy the burning core of his need. His passion forces him to disregard cost-benefit analysis. He stops asking, "Is this profitable?" and starts asking, "Will this fulfill my dream?" This is the moment when the strategic predator knows he has his prey cornered. The prey has chosen emotional fulfillment over rational calculation, and in the game of power, calculation always defeats enthusiasm. Consider the dynamic in relationships or organizational politics. The employee who is passionately devoted to one specific project, say the new technological rollout, becomes strategically weak. Management knows this project is his baby, They can manipulate him into working extreme hours, accepting lower compensation, or ignoring internal corruption simply by threatening the viability of his passion. He trades his strategic optionality, the ability to walk away, to negotiate, to pivot to a better opportunity, for the right to nurture his obsession. He becomes indispensable to the project, but replaceable to the organization, because his value is conditional on him remaining chained to that single pursuit. He has traded true freedom for the perceived glory of his self-imposed prison. Machiavelli would argue that true strength lies in emotional detachment and strategic agnosticism. The effective leader must treat goals as tools, not as gods. If one path becomes too costly, too consuming, or too risky, the detached strategist simply discards it and selects a new, more advantageous path. He retains his agency because his self-worth is not tied up in the outcome of any single endeavor. The passionate man, however, is crippled by the necessity of maintaining the narrative. Once he has declared his life's passion, once he has sacrificed comfort and security, he cannot retreat without facing the shattering conclusion that the sacrifice was pointless. The passion becomes a sunk cost fallacy amplified by ego. He must continue down the unprofitable, dangerous path, not because it still makes strategic sense, but because turning back would mean admitting defeat to himself, and, perhaps more terrifyingly, to the world he sought to impress. This dynamic leads to strategic rigidity. The passionate person is often brilliant within the narrow confines of their specialty, but catastrophically inept at everything else. They build systems, teams, and entire lives optimized for one specific environment, one specific goal. When fortune, the unpredictable flow of external events, shifts the environment, the passionate man cannot adapt. Machiavelli famously insisted that a prince must be able to change his conduct as the winds of fortune and the dictates of necessity command him. The man of singular passion fails this test instantly. He is structurally incapable of changing his conduct, because his conduct is inextricably linked to his identity. If the market for his specialized passion vanishes, he cannot pivot to a related profitable field, because pivoting feels like a betrayal of his deepest self. He watches the pragmatic, less passionate competitors survive the shift and thrive, while he remains fiercely, ideologically loyal to a burning ember that offers no heat. The prison isn't just external constraint, it is internal inflexibility. We must understand that this prison of passion is often self-glorifying. We wear our exhaustion, our sacrifice, and our obsessive focus as badges of honor. We conflate misery with merit. Machiavelli teaches us that this is merely a performance masking a severe loss of strategic control. When you are so passionate that you cannot take a vacation, cannot delegate important tasks, and cannot trust others to manage critical components of your vision, you are not indispensable. You are paralyzed. You have created a system dependent entirely on your singular finite energy. The moment you become the single point of failure for your own ambition, you have become strategically bankrupt. The ambitious but detached strategist builds robust systems that can survive his absence. The passionate fanatic builds a personal cult of effort that collapses the moment he is incapacitated, distracted, or simply worn out. The passion ensures that no one else can truly share the burden, because the vision is too personal, too sacred, too intertwined with the leader's emotional needs. Furthermore, passion distorts the crucial Machiavellian balance between fear and love, or more accurately, between respect and utility. When you are driven by passion, you seek others who share that passion, not those who complement your weaknesses. You surround yourself with enthusiasts, yes, men who validate the intensity of your dream, but who lack the critical detachment necessary to offer real strategic counsel. Machiavelli always emphasized surrounding oneself with men of courage and intellect who tell the prince the truth, even if it is uncomfortable. The passionate leader cannot tolerate this truth if it threatens the core object of his desire. He systematically filters out the voices of caution, logic, and necessary pessimism. He perceives necessary criticism as personal sabotage. In this echo chamber of shared zeal, the leader becomes increasingly isolated from reality. He is cheered on by those who benefit from his recklessness or who share his delusion. When disaster finally strikes, as fortune inevitably dictates it must, he has no allies with the necessary strategic capacity to salvage the situation. only co-conspirators who are equally invested in the delusion. This is why passionate movements, whether political, religious, or commercial, often collapse in spectacular, total ruin. They lack the self-correcting mechanism of cold, detached strategy. The final, devastating layer of this prison is the loss of identity outside the goal. When your passion becomes your entire self, what remains if the goal is destroyed or achieved? Machiavelli would observe that the successful tyrant, or the achieved prince, must always maintain a certain emptiness at the core, a space reserved for pure strategic calculation, so that he can pivot effortlessly to the next objective without a moment of existential crisis. The goal is a means to power, never the definition of the man. The passionate individual, conversely, defines their very existence by their pursuit. If the business fails, he has failed as a man. If the relationship ends, he is fundamentally broken. This fusion of self and goal makes the pursuit utterly debilitating, forcing him to continue fighting unwinnable battles simply to avoid the terrifying vacuum of non-identity. He would rather be imprisoned by his fight than face the freedom of having nothing to fight for. This is the ultimate strategic vulnerability, trading psychological safety for strategic freedom. You sacrifice agency for meaning, only to find that the meaning itself becomes the shackles. We are establishing the framework for understanding one of the deepest traps in modern strategic thought. We know that liberation begins with recognizing the chains. We know that the next essential step is applying these cold, hard truths to dismantle the self-imposed limits that keep you from real, flexible, sustainable power. We must see passion for what it is, a powerful, volatile energy source that must be contained, controlled, and strategically deployed, never allowed to become the master of the strategist. The wise leader masters his fervor. The fool is consumed by it. This is the foundation of our study. We are committed to dissecting the strategy of power and the geometry of human failure. We know you are here because you demand profound strategic insights that cut through the noise of conventional advice. Make the conscious commitment now. Affirm your dedication to mastering strategic truth by commenting the phrase, "I master the fire." Do that now, and immediately subscribe to this channel. Join the growing community of those who understand that quiet competence and detached calculation are the true keys to strategic authority. We are building the strongest strategic minds online. You must secure your place within this critical discourse. We have begun by establishing why the burning heart is a strategic liability, but we have much more to uncover. The immediate next step is analyzing the fatal attraction of the superficial, the allure of the quick fix that promises power, but delivers only vulnerability. We will delve into the strategic principles required to operate effectively in the murky waters of appearances versus reality. The subsequent lesson is a critical examination of how Machiavelli teaches us to identify and exploit the fundamental weakness in any system, and how you can avoid the strategic pitfalls that lead to the collapse of empires and careers alike. Do not miss the next step in this dissection of strategic power. We are moving from diagnosis to application. We continue this essential strategic training immediately. Forget about physical restraints. Forget about walls built of brick or iron bars hammered by a blacksmith. The strongest, most unbreakable prisons are those constructed entirely of desire. You think you are pursuing freedom when you chase a consuming passion, but in the brilliant, calculating mind of Niccolò Machiavelli, you are merely architecting your own perpetual cage. Passion, in his view, is not a fire that fuels success. It is a fever that burns judgment. It is the insidious enemy that looks exactly like your greatest strength. It is the anchor you voluntarily drop in the deepest waters, immobilizing you while the strategic world sails on. It is the reason why the most talented, the most ambitious, and the most fiercely driven people often fail spectacularly, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked emotional coldness. The moment you allow a passion, be it for a person, a goal, a territory, or even a specific outcome, to become an absolute necessity, you have handed your enemies the blueprint to your destruction. You have forfeited your ability to maneuver. You have ceased to be the sovereign of your own strategy and have become the slave of your own craving. Before we dive deeper into the architecture of this emotional trap, I need to know where this conversation is reaching you. Tell me right now in the comments below what city you are watching from. We are building a global collective of strategic thinkers and your voice is a piece of this structure. Now, understand the fundamental mechanism of the prison. The first lock Machiavelli identifies is the predictability trap. Real power, as established, operates through silence and unpredictability. It retains options. It holds the ability to pivot without notice. Passion destroys this advantage instantly. When a prince is passionately attached to acquiring a certain city, a general is obsessively driven to defeat a specific rival, or a business owner is consumed by the need to protect a single product line, they become utterly transparent. Their actions cease to be strategic choices and become predictable reactions fueled by that singular, consuming want. Your enemies do not need to guess your next move. They simply need to threaten what you passionately hold dear. If your love for your reputation is your driving force, they will attack your reputation. If your obsessive loyalty to a flawed advisor dictates your policy, they will manipulate that advisor. If your deep-seated need for public validation rules your life, they will control you through selective praise and orchestrated shame. Machiavelli saw this as strategic negligence. A ruler, or any person seeking to wield influence, must strive to appear aloof, capable of walking away, willing to sacrifice any element, even the most beloved, if strategy demands it. The passionate person cannot walk away. They are emotionally leveraged. They are moored to their desire, and the chain leading from the anchor is the path their adversary will use to drag them into inescapable conflict. The very intensity that defines passion is what forms the bars of your cell. It creates a tyranny of investment. Think about the psychological cost of passion. The longer you invest time, effort, and emotional capital into a singular endeavor, the higher the invisible price tag you attach to failure. This leads to the irrational calculation, the second devastating lock of the passion prison. The strategic mind assesses risk versus reward objectively. The passionate mind assesses risk versus the crushing emotional pain of abandonment. A wise leader, facing a deteriorating war, cuts his losses immediately, preserves his remaining resources, and finds a new front. The passionate leader, obsessed with the initial glory, continues to pour men and treasure into the lost cause, not because victory is possible, but because retreat feels like a personal existential defeat. They have invested too much of their identity into the outcome. This irrational persistence transforms a controllable loss into a life-destroying disaster. Machiavelli observed that men are rarely ruined by the things they do not care about. They are ruined by the things they care about too much. That beloved project, the toxic but intoxicating relationship, the ideology you refuse to question, these are the debts that demand compound interest. You find yourself doing things you swore you never would, compromising your principles, ignoring clear data, alienating loyal allies, just to feed the emotional monster that is your passion. The need to satisfy the desire becomes more powerful than the goal itself. You are no longer serving your ambition. You are serving the anxiety of potentially losing the ambition. This is the definition of a slave, someone whose actions are dictated by the needs of another, even if that other is merely a psychological construct of their own intense craving. This leads directly to the third key mechanism of the prison, the blindness of the zealous. Machiavelli's entire doctrine rests on the ability to perceive reality clearly, uncolored by hope, fear, or sentiment. Passion is a powerful lens that distorts reality, making you see what you want to see, not what is. It gives you a highly selective form of strategic myopia. When passion takes hold, peripheral vision is lost. You become so focused on the object of desire that you fail to notice the threats gathering on the flanks. Consider the prince who passionately loves the arts and scholarship. He invests lavishly in culture, ignoring the crumbling infrastructure of his defenses or the quiet dissent of the peasantry. His passion for beauty blinds him to the necessity of security. A rival, devoid of such sentimental attachments, merely waits for the opportune moment, knowing that the prince's priorities are fixed elsewhere. The passionate entrepreneur is so focused on the vision of their initial product that they ignore market feedback and disruptive technologies. They fall in love with their own creation, treating objective critique as a personal attack. They are convinced their genius will win the day, forgetting that the market rewards utility, not emotional attachment. When the inevitable failure arrives, it feels sudden, but to the detached observer, it was predictable from the start. The truly powerful leader must cultivate a strategic indifference. They must be capable of loving something profoundly in one moment and systematically dismantling it the next, should necessity arise. This detachment is not cruelty. It is strategic sanity. It is the ability to acknowledge that the world is messy, circumstances change, and yesterday's passion is today's liability. The passionate person lacks this crucial gear, the reverse button. They can only move forward, toward the object of their fixation, even if it leads them over a cliff. Machiavelli's greatest lesson is that you must master your emotional state before you attempt to master others. If your desires rule you, how can you expect to rule a state, a company, or even your own destiny? This is where the distinction between pursuit and possession becomes critical. Many people mistakenly believe passion is necessary for the initial pursuit of greatness. But the passion that drives the initial effort often becomes the weakness that undermines the long-term consolidation of power. The hunter needs drive to catch the prey. But once the prey is caught, the strategic administrator takes over. If the hunter remains obsessed with the hunt itself, they will constantly risk the bounty already secured. Passion is excellent for the sprint, but disastrous for the marathon of governance and sustained influence. Sustainable power requires tedious, unglamorous consistency, policy adjustments, bureaucratic efficiency, careful financial management. Passion abhors the tedious. It seeks the dramatic peak, the intoxicating high. When the passionate person reaches the summit, they are already looking for the next emotional fix, or worse, they cling desperately to the peak, incapable of performing the mundane maintenance necessary to hold the position. Machiavelli understood that emotional stability creates structural stability. The populace, and by extension, employees, investors, and allies, seek a leader who is predictable in their temperament and reliable in their judgment. Passion guarantees the opposite: volatility. A leader driven by passion makes erratic, high-stakes moves that confuse allies and alert enemies. They elevate favorites because of personal affection rather than competence. They engage in conflicts out of personal spite rather than strategic necessity. They forgive massive failures because they cannot bear to discard someone they emotionally value. This toxic cycle undermines the two cornerstones of Machiavellian rule: reputation and trust. How can subordinates trust a leader whose decisions are dictated by the shifting sands of personal desire? How can a prince maintain a reputation for justice when his actions are clearly biased by a consuming affection or an irrational hatred? The passionate leader soon finds that their network fragments. The competent move away, seeking strategic predictability elsewhere. The sycophants move closer, recognizing the emotional vulnerability as the pathway to influence. The passionate leader becomes a magnet for manipulators. Those who want to use you do not need to threaten you with force. They simply need to cater to your obsession. They become the keepers of the prison keys, offering momentary relief or proximity to the desired object in exchange for strategic concessions. This form of manipulation is silent, bloodless, and devastatingly effective because the victim is an eager participant in their own compromise. It is better to be feared than loved, yes, but Machiavelli also warns against being hated, which is what unchecked passion inevitably generates. When a leader acts purely out of personal zeal, ignoring the needs or suffering of others, they create universal resentment. The people tolerate the cold, calculating ruler who provides stability, but they despise the hot-headed, self-serving ruler who uses the state to fulfill personal cravings. The passionate person is constantly fighting two wars: the external war against competitors and the internal, exhausting war against their own turbulent feelings. The true strategist, conversely, has already won the internal war. They are a still pond, reflecting reality perfectly. The passionate person is a storm-tossed sea, unable to distinguish between the waves of their own making and the actual currents of the world. This brings us to the ultimate strategic failure caused by the prison of passion: the inability to commit political murder. Machiavelli speaks often of the necessity of removing threats decisively and without sentimentality. This can be literal or metaphorical: firing a failing division head, discarding a useless strategy, ending a profitable but ethically ruinous partnership. The passionate person cannot execute this necessary removal. They hold on to the failing project because they built it. They keep the incompetent but loyal subordinate because they share a history. They refuse to close the chapter because the emotional narrative is still open. They are held hostage by nostalgia, by loyalty, by sentimentality. all derivatives of passion. The cold, detached strategist views every asset, human, financial, or intellectual, as a tool. When the tool breaks or ceases to be useful, it is sharpened, replaced, or discarded without hesitation. This is the brutal efficiency required for survival at the highest levels of power. The passionate person, however, sees the tool as an extension of self. To discard it is to tear away a piece of their own carefully constructed identity. This is the final bar of the prison, the fusion of the self with the source of desire. The prince must always remember that his primary duty is to the state, the objective success of the enterprise, not to his own feelings. The moment the personal eclipses the political, the system begins to fail, and the fall becomes inevitable. When passion dictates policy, the ruler becomes the single point of failure. You must choose. Do you want to be free to execute the optimal strategy, or do you want the temporary, intoxicating high of absolute commitment? The truly great understand that commitment must be to the process, not the outcome, and certainly not the emotion. The power that endures is quiet, adaptable, and most importantly, emotionally uncommitted. It can change its mind, reverse course, and betray its former affections without a moment's internal conflict. It has no prison walls because it has nothing it must keep. It is sovereign precisely because it is emotionally detached. We have explored the architecture of the passion prison, the predictability trap, the tyranny of investment, and the blindness of zeal. We have seen how attachment destroys strategic maneuverability and clear judgment. In the next and final part of this series, we will shift focus and explore the Machiavellian antidote, how to cultivate that necessary emotional detachment, the strategic indifference, that allows for true, unassailable freedom and power. We will discuss the practical applications of viewing the world through the lens of pure utility, and how this seemingly cold approach is the only way to safeguard your long-term success against the inevitable betrayals of fortune and the self-sabotage of deep desire. This realization that passion is a strategic liability is the most important lesson you can internalize today. Show me you are committed to this path of strategic freedom. Use this phrase in the comments right now. My strength is my silence. Declare your intention to prioritize calculation over craving. If this analysis has forced you to reconsider what you thought was your greatest strength, guarantee your access to the next pivotal stage of understanding. Hit the like button to signal your commitment to strategic mastery, and subscribe immediately. Do not risk letting the algorithms decide your fate. Take control and ensure you join the ranks of those who understand the true hidden mechanics of influence. You need to know the next step. You must understand how to apply this strategic indifference in the real world to build enduring, unshakable power. The next video is waiting to complete your education on this Machiavellian path. You cannot afford to miss the final lesson that converts theory into action. The game is about to change, and you need the final blueprint to win. We are constantly bombarded with a single seductive instruction. Find your passion. Dedicate your life to it. Let it consume you. Let it be the fire that guides you. This advice, delivered with the warmth of motivational speakers and the sincerity of career counselors, sounds like the formula for a meaningful existence. Yet Niccolò Machiavelli, the cold-eyed observer of human ambition, would diagnose this relentless pursuit of a singular passion not as liberation, but as a deliberate act of self-imprisonment. The object of your deepest affection, the ambition that defines your very identity, is precisely the cage that Machiavelli warns against. It is the single point of failure you construct with your own hands. Before we dive deeper into the structure of this self-imposed confinement, I want to know where this conversation is reaching you. Tell me, which city are you watching from? The nature of power and the strategic pitfalls of human emotion are universal, regardless of your location. And understanding Machiavelli's final warning in this trilogy can fundamentally change your entire life strategy, whether you're in Jakarta, Berlin, or Buenos Aires. The essence of the prison is dependence. Passion, by its very nature, demands exclusivity. It requires the consolidation of resources, time, identity, and mental space into one overwhelming objective. The entrepreneur obsessed solely with their company, the artist consumed entirely by their current masterpiece, the lover who sees their entire universe in another person. They are all exhibiting the same fundamental strategic error. They have built their fortress on a single solitary foundation. Machiavelli reminds us that a wise prince must always have multiple fortresses, multiple means of defense and multiple sources of loyalty. The passionate person, however, consciously chooses the opposite. They choose the singular vulnerability. This vulnerability manifests in catastrophic ways. Firstly, the passionate person loses their objective sight. Machiavelli prized prudence, the ability to judge events clearly and adapt swiftly. Passion blinds this prudence. When you are emotionally invested, you cannot see the flaws in your plan, the toxicity of your ally, or the inevitable failure of your project. The passion itself becomes the filter, distorting reality until the pursuit, rather than the success, becomes the only metric of meaning. You cease to be a strategist observing the field. You become a zealous combatant, unable to retreat, even when retreat is the only path to survival. The fire that was supposed to guide you now generates so much smoke that you cannot see the road ahead. The second consequence of this passion prison is the surrender of adaptability, which Machiavelli termed virtù. Virtù is the flexibility, the capacity to meet the unpredictable demands of fortuna, fate or circumstance, with a change in approach. But the passionate person, bound to their singular vision, cannot pivot. If the market shifts, the political climate changes, or the relationship sours, they lack the mental and emotional liquidity to adapt. Their entire identity is tied up in the success of the one endeavor. To abandon the project is not a strategic adjustment. It is an existential crisis. The failure of the passion becomes the failure of the self. They would rather sink with the ship than transfer to a more stable vessel, because that ship, however doomed, is their ship. This inflexibility makes them predictable to their enemies and devastatingly vulnerable to the whims of chance. Consider the historical figure who placed all his hopes and alliances in one city or one powerful patron. Machiavelli would note that when that city falls, or that patron turns hostile, the ruler is utterly ruined. The modern parallel is the individual whose career, social circle, and self-worth are entirely tied to a single company, industry, or creative outlet. When that entity suffers a downturn, when they are made redundant, or when the wellspring of their creativity runs dry, they are left with nothing. They have traded the security of a balanced portfolio of interests for the intoxicating rush of total devotion. That rush eventually resolves into isolation and despair. This leads to the great Machiavellian warning about hostages. When you allow one thing to hold the entirety of your devotion, you have given your enemies a psychological hostage. They know exactly what you cannot afford to lose, and they know exactly where to apply pressure. A person with diversified interests, who possesses competence in multiple domains, is difficult to neutralize. If you attack their career, they retreat to their family life and strategic investments. If you attack their social standing, they focus on their core competencies and intellectual pursuits. They are strategically untouchable because they do not have a single throat for you to choke. The passionate person, conversely, has only one pressure point. The moment that singular goal is threatened, be it reputation, financial stability through their art, or the continuance of a relationship, they become irrational. They will compromise long-term strategic integrity for short-term emotional relief. They will make foolish, desperate deals to save the one thing that gives their life meaning. They are negotiating from a position of profound weakness, because their opponent knows they are negotiating not for a commodity, but for their soul. Machiavelli understood that emotional need always precedes strategic error. The more you need something, the less power you have over it. Passion, therefore, is the engine of strategic weakness. The way out of this prison is not to eliminate feeling entirely. That is impossible and undesirable, but to transfer the primary engine of your decisions from sentiment to strategy. Machiavelli's concept of freedom is not the freedom to do whatever you want. It is the freedom from being compelled by circumstance or emotion to act against your own long-term interests. This liberation requires a radical shift in perspective. You must view your ambitions not as sacred, burning passions, but as strategic projects within a broader portfolio of self-development. If one project fails, you mourn the investment, not the destruction of your identity. You pivot with the pragmatic calculation of an investor moving capital from a sinking stock to a rising one. The focus shifts from the intensity of the feeling, passion, to the efficiency of the result, prudence. The truly powerful individual, according to Machiavelli's hidden doctrine, is the one who can cultivate detachment. They engage fiercely, but they are not enslaved. They can love their work, their allies, and their goals, but they are always prepared for the moment when that work must be altered, that ally must be managed, or that goal must be abandoned for a superior one. They maintain the internal boundary between the self and the project. The project is a tool. The self is the master wielding it. The passionate person collapses this boundary, making the project the master and the self the instrument. To break free, you must deliberately diversify your identity. Cultivate 3 or 4 distinct areas of competence and interest that do not rely on each other for success. Ensure your financial security is separate from your creative fulfillment, and that your emotional support network is separate from your professional endeavors. If one pillar cracks, the entire structure does not collapse. This is not apathy. This is sophisticated risk management applied to the soul. It is the practical application of virtue in personal life. The passionate person often looks down on this strategic detachment, calling it cold, calculating, or lacking soul. But Machiavelli reminds us that survival and lasting influence are fundamentally pragmatic endeavors. The ruler who succeeds is not the one who burns brightest, but the one who endures longest. Endurance requires resilience, and resilience is the direct opposite of dependence on a single, emotional variable. Think about the moment the passion turns sour. The startup that once felt like a noble quest now feels like a crushing debt. The relationship that was the source of all joy now generates only resentment and obligation. Because the identity was so closely merged with the external object, the internal self begins to rot when the external object decays. The prison is complete when the passion that was supposed to liberate you now compels you to stay in toxic environments or pursue failing strategies simply because walking away means admitting that the last 10 years of your life were built on a strategic lie. Machiavelli's final instruction on this matter is perhaps the most profound. Never allow your psychological well-being to be contingent upon the success of an unpredictable external factor. The moment the feeling of self-worth relies on the quarterly returns, the acceptance of the art, or the affirmation of another person, you have outsourced your authority and surrendered your sovereignty. Your freedom is directly proportional to the number of viable options you possess, and passion relentlessly seeks to minimize those options down to one. The antidote is not cynicism, but competence applied broadly. Be skilled enough to pivot. Be financially secure enough to walk away. Be emotionally detached enough to see the reality of a situation, unclouded by the desperate need for it to succeed. This strategic detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of emotion. It is the ultimate expression of internal power, knowing that you can pursue a goal with intensity and dedication, yet still maintain the capacity to cut the cord the moment that goal becomes a liability. The most formidable individuals are not the ones who passionately love their endeavor. They are the ones who strategically master it. They use emotion as fuel, but never as the map. They prioritize long-term sovereignty over short-term sentimental satisfaction. They understand that true power lies not in commitment to a single flame, but in the structural integrity of the entire house. The question that remains is whether you are willing to trade the comfort of your passionate cage for the rigorous, demanding freedom of strategic detachment. Are you ready to admit that the advice to follow your heart is perhaps the most strategically dangerous counsel you could ever receive? This shift, from follower of sentiment to master of strategy, is the difference between collapse and resilience. It is the core of Machiavelli's enduring insight. Realizing this truth is the first step toward breaking the bars of the self-made prison. If this final conclusion resonates and you feel the weight of this self-imposed cage lifting, I want you to assert your newfound strategic autonomy right now. Go to the comments and declare, "My strategy masters my sentiment." This commitment ensures you prioritize calculated action over emotional reaction, solidifying this critical change in perspective. Do not allow this revelation to be a fleeting thought. Lock in this knowledge by ensuring you are part of our community. Subscribe now and confirm your dedication to strategic competence and power. Hit that like button to signal your understanding that lasting influence is built on multiple pillars, not on a single passionate fire. And if you found the strategic dissection of passion compelling, prepare yourself. The next insight we uncover will reveal the ultimate Machiavellian secret to ensuring your efforts are never wasted, no matter how chaotic the world becomes. We are moving from the pitfalls of emotion to the fundamental rules of permanent personal leverage. You will not want to miss the next layer of this strategy.